All right, so the second session tonight, we're going to talk about the Social Venture Studio. So oftentimes I get a question especially from people who attend Keystone sessions, like, what do you guys do here? Like, is this all you do is drink beer and eat food? And
that's what I was asking.
talk? Well, I mean, I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Father Justin, it's true. But no, that is not all we do here. We actually, Keystone CoLab has 3 purposes. This is our community center phase of a future innovation district here in Kansas City. This is innovation events like this one. We also host third-party events. If you're a nonprofit, an educational partner, or an entrepreneurial support organization, you can actually use our space for your events for free. All you need to do is make sure the calendar is open. A lot of people don't know that. This is a public workspace. People can just drop in at any point throughout the day, use our Wi-Fi. If they're in between meetings and they just want to drop in and work. We're not a co-working facility. We don't offer desks. We don't charge day passes, those types of things. But you can just drop in here and work throughout the day, have your meetings here, that kind of stuff. We get a lot of use from folks. The third purpose for Keystone CoLab is it's our programming hub. It's the first programming hub for the Innovation District, because the Innovation District, if you've ever heard me give this speech, is not a real estate project. It's not about real estate. It's about programming and placemaking to connect the innovation community here in Kansas City, and using programming and placemaking to drive real estate requirements to encourage that co-location, encourage collisions like we do here at Keystone Sessions, and those types of things. So our programs are extremely important. As our programs grow, it gives us the opportunity to grow our footprint, to attract new stakeholders into our community, to continue to grow innovation and entrepreneurship as an economic development catalyst for the greater Kansas City region, the bi-state region. So one of the first programs, actually the first program that we launched under the Keystone umbrella, was the one we're going to talk about tonight. And it's the Social Venture Studio with Launch KC. And the reason we're doing this information session tonight is because we're in the middle of our application process for our second cohort. So I'm joined this evening by our esteemed guest and co-ideator, co-founder of this program. This happened literally over drinks in a very short order, talking about common interests and passions that we both have about this space. I have a thing in Keystone Sessions. I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't introduce our guests.
You don't?
I make them introduce themselves. Can you please tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah,
sir?
I want to go back to how Social Venture Studio was number 1.
It was the first program.
It was the first.
It was the first program.
Just if you take anything away.
Yeah.
Right. No, okay. So my name is Father Justin Mathews, and I am really excited to be one of the co-founders and co-chair of Social Venture Studio. And I'm also the executive director, CEO of Reconciliation Services and Thelma's Kitchen on Troost. So really excited to be here, excited about Keystone. I will tell you, in some of your other programming that you mentioned, we've brought our leadership team and our board here and had awesome strategic planning events, and just really grateful to Keystone and for the service that you're providing to the community.
We are here to grow community. I think thanks for that plug. I appreciate it. Before we dive into the program itself, one of the reasons I wanted to get you up here to talk about this was to go through a little bit of the founding story, because I think that really helps. One of the questions we get when people hear about this program, if you've ever heard of startup accelerators like Techstars or Y Combinator, it's really easy if you're a startup and somebody says, hey, we've got an accelerator program. A lot of people know what those are, and a lot of people know what the purpose of those accelerators are, and what service they hold for startups. The question we get a lot as a social venture studio is, am I eligible? Is this something that I would fit in? Like, I don't know if I'm a startup. I don't know if, I'm maybe not a for-profit business, those types of things. So I think having the context of the founding story and like why we decided to do this, or why this is something we want to do, will really help startups or help early stage companies or even growth stage companies understand if this is the right program for them. So when you and I met, we started talking about, you asked me, why are you doing Keystone? What's Keystone all about? And we quickly got into kind of the personal passions around working with startups and kind of the vision for this. So if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about like what you were thinking about and why a program like this was important to you.
So I've been in the nonprofit space for 25 years. And in the time that
you're old.
I'm old.
Yeah, you're old.
I'm old. I don't look as old as you, but I'm old.
That's fair.
Fair. Okay. At any rate.
Right into that one.
At any rate, let's get back on topic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. in the nonprofit space for 25 years, the one thing that I experienced over and over again is this nonprofit starvation cycle, where nonprofits are constantly doing great work. The more great work that they do, the more attention they attract. But the more attention they attract, the more that funders get things off the ground, but maybe don't want to continue to fund things long term. They'll come to you and say, man, you're doing such a great job. Let's get 5 or 6 other people to fund you doing that. I'm going to pull back this year to go do something else, which is fine. And that's how foundations and individual donors, others work that way. However, it's really different than the business community, right? So in the business community, if you've got an idea that's working, you go, shoot, let's pour a lot more into that. Let's scale it, let's grow it, let's keep going. There's a certain mindset in the business community that's different than kind of the old school nonprofit community. So as I was coming along in the nonprofit world, I just remember feeling really burnt out on feeling like, gosh, every year we're fundraising, every year we're meeting new people, every year we're trying to fund this work, but there's no self-generation. There's got to be a different way to do it, where not only are you engaging with donors and foundations and grants and et cetera, but maybe there's also a way that a nonprofit could also generate income. Maybe there's even a way where a for-profit could generate social good at really significant levels and have that embedded into the purpose of their company. So I started to read about this thing called social entrepreneurship or social venturing. And as we were talking, we really hit it off thinking about, what does the future of philanthropy look like? What does the future of not only the nonprofit space look like, but what's the future of capitalism look like? What's the emerging model for how we're going to operate as a community, as a society, to do more social good? And so as I got interested in that, I started finding other people like this gentleman here who is interested in that. And we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be amazing? And Jim Erickson was one of the first people on this phone call too. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had not just an accelerator for entrepreneurs who are doing great things, but wouldn't it be great if we had an accelerator or a studio program to wrap around and support social entrepreneurs who are returning not just return on investment, but social return on investment? And that's sort of how we got started.
I think it's really funny that you referenced it as a phone call, because I think we were down the street here at King G's having drinks. But anyway,
it might have been.
It might have been. I don't know. My background, if you guys,
you just threw me under the bus, like right here. You
no,
right?
You weren't. The
Everybody
only one.
saw it, right?
Yeah, you weren't the only one.
I'm just saying. Go ahead, carry on.
My background, for those of you that don't know what I was doing before I did this, I had the great fortune working for Sprint to have 2 projects, 2 of my final projects before I left the company. One was starting the Sprint Accelerator. So in my career at Sprint, running product, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley to MIT Media Labs to different markets around the country. So a lot of experience working with entrepreneurs. I also had the good fortune of working for a CEO, a gentleman named Dan Hesse, who is one of the national leading voices in corporate social responsibility. And his belief, and the thing that he really kind of put towards all of his employees and his leadership team was, being a member of the community. Business isn't separate from the community. Business is a part of the community. Business has a role in the community, and it needs to have a positive influence on the community. Capitalism and community development and social good, those should not be separate. And that for me, when we started Keystone and we were going to start support for entrepreneurs and we were going to bring innovators together and try to grow the economy through new venture creation and growth of entrepreneurship around the region, my thing was like, why teach businesses later what corporate social responsibility is? Every entrepreneur that comes through any of our programs should learn about corporate social responsibility and learn about the idea that business should be for good as much as it should be for making money. So when we had this first conversation, I was listening to the nonprofit side of this and the grant starvation piece, which I am very familiar with now running a nonprofit. And then I'm thinking about it from the for-profit side of more businesses should be focused on doing good, and that should be part of their business model and part of what they do. There was just natural alignment, and that's one of the reasons that this program came to be. So we'll walk you a little bit through this. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of, we've already had one cohort, and we'll talk about some of the success metrics and some of the results that we saw from that first cohort. But I wanted to walk you through this tonight because, as I mentioned, we're in the middle of our second application period for our second cohort, which closes on March 1st. So coming up here pretty soon. So we'll talk a little bit about the background, which we've done a little bit, but we'll go a little bit deeper into some of those challenges, I think, about social entrepreneurship, social venturing. We'll talk a little bit about the program summary and then the eligibility requirements, because that's the thing we hear the most from entrepreneurs is, I don't know if I'm eligible. I don't know if my business, I don't know if my idea, I don't know if this is a program that I fit in. And I would much rather see those opportunities apply for the program.
That's right.
Than sit back and say, I don't know if it's for me, so I'm not going to apply. We would much rather see you apply, get the feedback. Maybe there's something that you need to do, and there's a lot of programs around Kansas City. Digital Sandbox is one of those where if you don't get the grant on your first attempt, they're really good at giving you feedback and they encourage you to come back for the second attempt. We want to grow this ecosystem. I think that's one of our primary goals with this program is Kansas City should be known as kind of the epicenter of social venturing and social entrepreneurship. And so apply. That's kind of the message, and that's why we want people to understand what this is really all about. We'll talk a little bit about the application details, and then we'll open it up for questions if anybody has questions when we get to the end of that. So we talked a little bit about our purpose. There is one thing I want to focus on around social entrepreneurship. Our funding partner, the Sunderland Foundation, which has graciously agreed to fund 3 years of this program, they have a very specific focus when they talk about, and focus areas when they talk about the social aspect of this thing. And I don't know if you want to talk about, kind of their three focus areas, their three buckets.
Sure. So in social entrepreneurship, obviously, the idea is not only to create a return on investment, but create specific, measurable social return on investment. And when we're looking to do that, you need to pick particular areas that you want to work in. Well, in our partnership with the Sunderland Family Foundation, where we really aligned was wanting to focus on these areas: social, racial, and/or environmental change. And so those look different depending on whether or not you are a nonprofit or a for-profit. But in the end, the impact that we're looking for is the same. So we're sort of IRS agnostic, whether you are one type of entity or not, and we'll get into that. But we're looking for that social change. So social change might look like delivering trauma therapy in a community. It might look like delivering social services in a community of high need. Social impact could look like organizing or community building in disinvested communities. You can imagine the spectrum of what social looks like. So again, encouraging you to apply. If you're interested in any kind of social change, one that I've listed or maybe one that I haven't talked about because there are hundreds, you should apply. The second thing that we're looking at is racial. We really want to focus on racial equity, racial diversity. We've focused really hard in our first cohort as well as in our advisory board and in the way that we've formed the entity to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in every regard. But racial equity is a big piece of what we want to focus on. So if you're an entity that is focusing on furthering issues around racial equity, inclusion, and diversity, we're interested in that impact, and we're interested in how that impact intersects with your business model or your organizational model and your sustainability. The last one is looking at environmental change, and gosh, that could be everything from solar to Casey Can compost, right? Looking at composting and looking at renewable energy. So those are our three big areas that we want to focus on. But gosh, underneath those things is everything from workforce development to solar, from racial equity to working on homeless and housing issues. So hopefully that gives just a sense of the breadth of the social impact that we're looking for. But those three key areas, if you focus on one or even more of those, then we're really interested to talk to you. That's the kind of change that we want to see happen in our city and in our region. And we want to see it happen sustainably through social entrepreneurship.
So the fourth Tuesday of every month, we have a social venture meetup that we host here on behalf of Reconciliation Services and the work that Father Justin has been doing around growing the social venture ecosystem. So if you get an opportunity, join us on the fourth Tuesday of every month. The reason I say that is We could talk for hours, and I know because we could talk for hours about the question that's on the slide here is what is a social venture? What constitutes a social venture? So we're not going to go too deep into that tonight. Not too deep into that tonight. But he did say something that I think is really important, which is the idea that we're IRS category independent. The idea that it doesn't matter if you're a for-profit or a nonprofit. So in our first cohort, we had 7 companies, 7 organizations that were in our first cohort. We had 4 nonprofits and 3 for-profits that were in the cohort. And so we're really looking for those nonprofits that have a sustainable business model, or we're looking for those for-profits that are really trying to create that social, racial, or environmental change and impact that he mentioned on the previous slide. So let's talk a little bit about this. So give me, in your estimation, Father Justin, let's talk a little bit about the for-profit category.
Right.
So what kind of for-profit businesses, or what do you think constitutes a social venture in the for-profit world?
So when we think about social entrepreneurship or social venturing in the for-profit world, what we want to think about first and foremost is a company that centers purpose in the very heart of why it exists. Okay. So it's not enough to just be a B Corp. It's not enough just to sort of volunteer in the community. But really, in the DNA of who you are as an organization, as a company, are you centering purpose, and in particular, social, racial, and environmental change? Are you centering purpose in the heart of who you are? Does that influence how you hire, how you govern? Does that influence where you spend money, how you resource and look at supply chain, those issues? Some of those things are impacted by things like B Corp certification, but really moving beyond that into the heart of it, a nonprofit or a for-profit, in this case, a for-profit that focuses on becoming a social venture, has a sustainable business model, right? You want to stay in business, but you also are creating a measurable social impact. And in kind of rough translation, we would look for you to create not only a return on investment, but a social return on investment, and to demonstrate that in a measurable way.
So one of the easiest ways to think about this, and I say one because there's kind of many filters that you can look at that through, but as your revenue scales, as your business scales, does your impact scale without incremental effort? So are you that centered in your purpose that as your revenues grow, your customers grow, a lot of the things that we talked about in the previous session, is that part of your business growing? Is your impact also growing without you having to divert attention away from the business to ensure you're also doing the impact piece as though it's like a tag along? So that's one way to think about it from a for-profit perspective. We touched a little bit about on the nonprofit side, but let's talk about that a little bit more, because the idea of having a sustainable or a stable business model. So share with us a little bit your thoughts on kind of what that business model might look like, or what we consider a sustainable or a stable business model in this space.
So in the nonprofit space, the reality is we're the only sector that designates ourselves after an IRS designation, nonprofit. But in reality, nonprofits need to make a profit. They need to not only pay for their existence, but actually save money for future endeavors. So the whole idea of nonprofit, I really challenge the nomenclature there. But when we're thinking about social entrepreneurship, a nonprofit that's trying to move closer and closer on this spectrum to, that we could call it, of sort of, are you more for-profit, are you more nonprofit, are you more social entrepreneurial or less social entrepreneurial? As you think about moving closer to that social entrepreneurial spectrum, what you need to think about is, how am I generating revenue alongside of social purpose? So it might be that those two things, they're like a hybrid model. I have a for-profit endeavor that's generating revenue. I have a nonprofit endeavor that's funded by that and funded by other sources, and we do social good in the community. You could think about somebody who creates eyeglasses and sells eyeglasses, but who also works in an area that has low vision and has vision impairment and needs to do social entrepreneurial work to help people get glasses, etc. You could think about other models as well, but that kind of hybrid model. But as you move closer and closer to that middle on the spectrum, you actually find that there are nonprofits that are not only doing fee for service, but are generating revenue in the act of creating social good. And that kind of revenue stream is different than just asking for donations and writing grants. And it's different from just simple fee for service, but it's getting closer and closer to what we would consider a business model while still centering social purpose. And I think the thing that gets confusing is that if you think about the spectrum from for-profit to nonprofit, from no social purpose to complete social purpose as your focus, you start to blur the lines as to what is a nonprofit and what is a for-profit, because you're looking for that sustainable return on investment and sustainable social return on investment at the same time.
So I want to jump back to, kind of what is an accelerator, because this is really, we call it a venture studio. There's a reason for that. It's not your traditional accelerator model in terms of time frame and some of the other aspects of it. But generally, it's the same principle as a startup accelerator that you might see. And that's important to understand, because a lot of the resources, the support that you see in these startup accelerators, the goal in a startup accelerator is to get the startup accelerate their business 18 to 24 months in a 3-month window. So how can you accelerate their opportunity to be ready for investment, to be ready for accelerated growth in that short window? And so we want to bring those same resources to the table for those who are trying to understand what their business model is, whether it's mentorship, partnerships, capital, you have non-dilutive grants that are part of the program. How can you bring those same resources to this space that you bring to a traditional for-profit, high-growth accelerator or startup? And so I just wanted to really kind of lay that out for everyone, because those are the questions that we get the most often. I don't know if you guys saw me smile a minute ago while Father Justin was talking, but the first time we did this information session, we were fortunate enough to have 3 of our cohort members up here that also gave their perspective on how the program went. I'm not going to do it to him because I just heard him crack something open, but we have one of our cohort members that just walked in the room tonight and was unexpected him. So Jaron Thornhill with One Pair is here in the room. So if you guys have any questions about the first cohort when we're done, I'm sure he'll answer your questions. We might even get him up here and make him talk in a minute.
Absolutely.
Because his pitch is pretty amazing after going through the program. I say after going through the program. All right, so a little bit more background. We talk about the benefits of an accelerator. This could be led by a foundation. This could be led by a Kaufman Foundation, or it could be led by the Sunderland Family Foundation, but that doesn't make sense. What we really wanted to do was bring the expertise that we have in running for-profit business accelerators to the table with a steering committee that I've never been involved with, a steering committee that has got this much kind of bandwidth and power and juice for this topic. There's I think 12 members of the steering committee that are they've been amazing leaders in the community, and they understand this space really well, and they're very passionate about growing this alongside. And it's the steering chair is Father Justin, and then Drew Eanes, who is with J.E. Dunn, but also a member of the Hadley Project, which is the offshoot of the Sunderland Family Foundation, so very focused on this space as well. And then, as I mentioned, the Sunderland Family Foundation as our funder. So great civic support, great underpinning opportunity for those who apply and get into this cohort to have the backing of these different organizations.
Before you move on, I just want to highlight, you sort of breezed over Keystone and Kevin McGinnis. But I mean, Kevin has run multiple accelerators successfully, worked with multiple companies, and Keystone is actually administering and running the program on a daily basis. So this isn't just a group of folks getting together to collaborate who have good intentions. I mean, this is a program where you have world-class expertise coming together underneath this Keystone umbrella to deliver really, I think it's relationship based. I think more than just an accelerator that you're putting 60 people through, you've really got a small group of people, which makes it hard to choose, right? But you've got a small group of people that's focused on relationship and focused on what's best for your next step. And that's a really key differentiator, I think, between just a big wide open accelerator and a venture studio, making smaller numbers of investments in time and in resources, but going deeper to see greater acceleration.
Thank you. We talked a little bit about the speed at which this program, bless you, the speed at which this program came to market. I mean, I think we ideated around this in the fall of 21 and got the funding very, very quickly and had the first cohort up and running. The applications open in January, and we've been successful. We actually won an international award, IEDC award, while we were still in the first program. And so we're very proud of what we were able to accomplish in the first program and the impact. We'll talk a little bit about the impact we had with the 7 founders here in a minute. So let's dive into a little bit about what the programming looks like, because we made some modifications to this cohort that are different than they were in the first cohort. The first cohort we wanted to run as a 6-month program. We know people who are pursuing mission, who are already running businesses. To ask you to step away from that or dive into an everyday for 3-month kind of typical accelerator model was probably not feasible and probably too much to ask. So we wanted to extend the overall duration of the program to 6 months. And we kind of had a choppy schedule throughout that. So it was like every other Tuesday full time, every other Tuesday after that was half a day Tuesday. We had pitch sessions on Thursdays. It was confusing. It was confusing for me. And I know it was
worth it. Agreed.
All right, you keep talking like that, we're going to get you up here. So we made some changes this year to the program. So we're only going to run it for 4 months, but we're going to run every Tuesday from 9 to 5 during those 4-month periods. So I think there's like 12 or 13 Tuesdays that we're asking for from a commitment perspective. We're going to balance the cohort and individual learning opportunities. It's something we also learned. And by that, I mean there will be a lot of cohort-specific learning where we'll have functional mentors that will maybe provide presentations on sales, provide presentations on brand, on fundraising, and they'll do that to the entire cohort. And then the cohort has the opportunity to learn from each other. But one of the differences in what we're trying to do versus other programs, instead of focusing just on that cohort learning model, we will develop what's called an individual development plan at the very beginning of the program for each of the cohort members. And then we will selectively go find you the expertise that each one of those businesses needs. And we will bring those experts into the program for you specifically. So it's not just everybody gets, the peanut butter spread, same content, same curriculum, same mentors, that kind of thing. We're really trying to target it towards the individual needs of each of our cohort members and each of our founders that's in the business. And at the end of the day, the focus is on, just like it would be in a traditional accelerator or venture studio, the focus is on growing your business in a short amount of time. What are those obstacles? What are those needs you have? What are those gaps you have? Oftentimes we'll see, it's just solo founders or co-founders that are still grinding it out and they're looking to grow their business and get more support. How can we, in a very short window of time, make that happen for them? Program benefits. There's a grant opportunity attached to this. So you'll get a non-dilutive grant as part of the program. You'll get the ability to work here at CoLab and come in and use the space as one of our cohort members under the programming piece. Mentorship. I mean, I can't say enough about the mentors that we were able to put together in the first program.
Incredible group of people.
I mean, you had folks ranging from, Jeff Jones, the CEO of H&R Block, was able to spend time and listen to the pitches and give feedback. You had, folks from Barkley and Crux Marketing and VML Y&R that were really able to dig in and help people with their presentations, their pitch decks, that kind of stuff. You got world-class experts and mentors. We split our mentors into a couple different categories. I think it's important for people to understand. We have lead mentors. So every cohort member that comes into the program will be assigned through a kind of speed dating process, a lead mentor that will stay with them throughout the program. In fact, all of those lead mentors, for the most part, I think have stayed with their cohort founders after the program ended. So you build that kind of relationship one-on-one with a lead mentor that understands entrepreneurship, understands your space, and in the speed dating process has a passion for your business and a passion for your space.
I mean, you can't put a value on that. You really can't. I mean, to have that kind of mentorship, particularly if you're still in the early launch phase of a company, to get to work with some of the people that you mentioned and to have their wisdom and experience poured into your company for free is pretty incredible. And the whole point is to accelerate the social impact in the community as well.
I mean, I think my favorite example in terms of the lead mentor perspective was Dan Fromm, the CEO of Barkley, was one of our lead mentors and was matched up with Natasha Kirsch. What's her name? She just got married.
She just got married, but it's now called Prosperity is her organization.
Prosperity.
Formerly the Grooming Project.
She was matched up with Dan as her lead mentor, the CEO of Barkley. And Dan is not going to be a lead mentor in this program because he's still focused on the work that he's doing with Natasha and with Prosperity. So that's the kind of relationship that gets built through that lead mentorship program. We also have functional mentors. As I mentioned, we'll have people that'll come in and do specific mentoring around specific topics, or we'll match you with industry experts in your field. KC Can Compost or, Canby's Market or some of these other, like maybe logistics is the challenge that you have. We'll go find you logistics experts. Maybe it's, workforce development. We'll go find people that, can help you from a, trauma-informed leadership perspective and how to manage. Father Justin actually does a module on that really helps you understand how to manage your team, how to manage your cohort and do those types of things. Exposure. I mean, we've got tremendous exposure for the cohort in terms of, this is a Launch KC program. So you get all the benefits of the podcast with Startup Hustle, the exposure in the newspaper, just the news that we were able to generate and the positive traction we were able to generate for the cohort members. And then there's obviously the technical expertise, the legal, financial expertise that we'll bring to the table for you to help you stand up some of those really things that you might not be an expert in because you're focused on mission or focused on your business model. We'll really surround you with those experts to help you in those pieces of that. And now we'll be able to really focus on an alumni support network. One of the key changes for this second cohort will be not only do you have an alumni network that came out of the first cohort, but we're also matching you with alumni from the rest of the Launch KC cohorts, the grant competitions, the other accelerators that they've run previously for the last 7 or 8 years. So there's this large alumni pool of successful entrepreneurs that you'll get the opportunity to serve as act as peers and to help you, kind of through your journey as an entrepreneur as well.
And then we hope that through the social venture meetup that's happening monthly, that social entrepreneurs and people interested in social venturing in particular can kind of pull out from that particular larger group and then come together to support one another, network, and be able to grow together too.
So I'm not going to go through all the bullets on this slide. You guys can read it, but there's a wide variety of topics that we were able to touch on and really kind of dive into with each of the entrepreneurs that came through the program and bring experts to the table to really help folks out. Things like equity-centered design, sales and business development. We have the guy who probably one of the most prominent salespeople, in this region who runs the overall kind of Midwest region for AWS, who I've known for years, was able to come in and provide a lot of work on business development, and how to manage that piece of your business. Team culture. One of the heads of the talent management at Garmin came in and provided some fantastic modules on managing your team or how you as a leader should look at team management and how to successfully manage your team. Really good stuff. Amazing. One thing I will say is pitch. So a lot of accelerator programs, when you come into them, the pitch is the purpose. What they're really trying to do, a lot of accelerators, and I'll use Techstars as an example, they're really trying to get you ready for demo day because you're a portfolio company in their portfolio now. And if you're pitching successfully at demo day and you get follow-on investment, they're going to make a lot of money, right? Because they've invested in you and taken equity in your company. We don't take equity in any of the companies. Pitch is a tool. It's not the purpose. And I think you could ask any of the founders that were in the first piece, they hated pitch. They hated the first time they got up here. Most of them were terrible at it with the exception of a few of them.
Some people walked off stage, literally one person.
Yeah. And she admitted it in our first information session. Chef Shanita was in the middle of I think her second or third pitch practice. She started about 2 minutes into her pitch and she just can't do this and walked off the stage.
Different kind of mic drop.
For sure. Yeah, right. Totally different kind of mic drop. But at demo day, she crushed it.
Crushed it. Yeah.
The purpose of pitch is if you can succinctly explain your business to someone in that 7-minute window, that means you understand your business extremely well. There was a lack of clarity from some of our founders about what they really did or how to explain it to people. So we use pitch as a tool. Pitch for you to help understand and gain that clarity about your business, for you to be able to explain it to someone. We'll focus on an elevator pitch. That 60-second pitch, we'll focus on that 7-minute pitch, and then we'll focus on kind of that investor. I'm going to sit down with you, go through a longer presentation. How do you talk to investors? How do you talk to people when you're fundraising or raising money from an investment perspective if you're a for-profit? So pitch is a tool. It's not the purpose. Eligibility. We talked a lot about what we see as a social venture. I will say the one thing, we talked about this at the last steering committee meeting. I think we've talked about this at all the steering committee meetings. We don't know that much about social ventures. We have ideas around what they are or who they might be, but think about this as a huge experiment for us to understand what are those ideas that the people out there that are doing amazing work. We always talk about how much philanthropy and how much money there is in Kansas City. There's a lot of people who are doing amazing work, focused on mission, focused on purpose. We want them to tell us what social venturing is. We want them to tell us what social entrepreneurship is. And so that's why we say apply. If you think there's a chance you're a social venture, apply. Because we might not see it. We might not be able to sit up here and say, yeah, for sure that's one, until we go through the application process, go through the interview process. We're like, oh my gosh, didn't see it when it came through the door, but this is absolutely one. Gentleman sitting right there was probably one of them, one pair. Runs a shoe store, The simplified version of it. Guy who runs a shoe store applied to be in the program. All right. When we dug into the purpose, when we dug into what he did with the kids, and that was the primary reason for having the store, it was probably one of our top social ventures that we had come through the program.
It really was. And if you haven't gone to One Pair up on Troost, you need to go check it out. It's really one of the leading social ventures in Kansas City, doing incredible work with youth, as well as running an awesome business in Kansas City.
So a couple things that we are specifically looking for: full-time CEOs or co-founders. And we really want this to be full-time. You got to be at an MVP or greater. We'd love to see a little bit of revenue. If you've got an idea for a social venture, you're probably not there yet. But if you've got an operating business, if you've got an MVP, if you're full-time in the business, then I would say, that's really what we're looking for in this thing. A word about co-founders: we would like to see co-founders, or we would like to see you bring someone from a leadership perspective to the table with you. Our most successful team that we had in there, Casey Cam Compost, it was the CEO and her COO that were at all of the sessions. And when the CEO couldn't make it for a variety of reasons, the COO was there absorbing all the information, and they were really able to play off each other and play to their strengths. So we'd love to see co-founders, or at least someone else from a leadership team perspective, and use that as a talent management tool for you as well. Give someone on your team the opportunity to come into the program and really gain the same expertise, the same exposure to these business principles that you might see as well.
I want to mention, you talked about minimum viable product, or MVP, and I want to mention that there was somebody who had basically a software as service, a SaaS program that wasn't fully developed. They were still building it out. They didn't have a finished, pretty product ready to go, but they were testing it. They had an MVP that was out there for real in the wild and operating. And then by the end of it, I'm thinking about Diversity Telehealth. I'm thinking about the Come On Now platform. By the end of it, the Come On Now platform had developed even further with Dr. Shelley Cooper. And now, you can read about her in the Business Journal. She's killing it as well. But you might not have your if you're a software program, you might not have your final app done. You might be running it off a Google sheet in the background, doing a bunch of stuff manually. That's fine, but you're demonstrating that it's working. You have some kind of minimum viable product. Apply. Don't let that hold you back. Go ahead and apply, because this might be the program that you need to get you to that next step in development as well.
Yeah, and if you're running a business and you see your social venture part as something that you aren't yet doing, you've toyed around with, you might be doing it a little bit, that to us that qualifies, right? You're running a business that has the opportunity to move into a space to help you grow your revenue, or an organization where you think that revenue stream, and you've maybe done that test. And so MVP in the nonprofit world isn't the same vernacular as you might see in the startup world. So apply. Go through the program and be Absolutely. There. The other one, I don't know if any of you know who Roy Scott is, or Healthy Hip Hop, but guy just won another pitch competition down in Atlanta, and Michael B. Jordan is now one of his investors on the team. So pretty good exposure and pretty good opportunities that he ran into. The located in Kansas City, Missouri thing, I do want to touch on that. So we have a lot of conversation about this. There's amazing things that are happening all over the region. So I would say this is an eligibility an application requirement, but we're fairly loose on two ways. One, you need to have some presence here in Kansas City, Missouri. It doesn't have to be your headquarters, but you need to be willing to locate part of your team, do something along those lines, or you need to make sure that your impact is impacting Kansas City, Missouri. And so we focus on a lot on who the founder is, but who are you impacting? What population are you impacting? Where is that impact happening? So it can also be in Kansas City, Missouri as well, and we're a little bit more lenient on that one.
And we've had people apply who aren't from Kansas City or from right around here. We've had, and the idea would be that you could be from around the region or even further and apply, but the hope would be that we're, again, going back to something earlier that Kevin said, that we're trying to build the most social entrepreneurial city in the country. And we want to build that ecosystem, attract those founders, and we want to solve social issues and be able to build that social ecosystem in Kansas City in a way that's really leading edge.
I can't say, we think this is the way that the city gets better. If you have businesses that are focused on scaling their social impact, this becomes the ecosystem where people who have amazing ideas that are impacting communities want to be here because of the support they get as a startup or as a business. It's just going to make the community that much better as we continue to grow. So that's really what we're looking for. So what are you as an applicant committing to when you get into the program? One, you need to be open to feedback. That will be one of the questions you will get in every round of the interview is like, give us examples of where you've had a mentor, of where you've gotten feedback that you might not agree with, that's changed the way you think about your business. So you've got to be willing to be coached. You got to be coachable. This is common across every successful entrepreneurial program I've ever been a part of, whether it's Pipeline, Digital Sandbox, the work that UMKC Innovation Center does. They're looking for coachable entrepreneurs. So that's definitely number one.
You got to be fat, flexible, available, and teachable.
I thought you were talking about
You're
me.
fat. You are fat, but you're flexible, available, and teachable.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that.
You should apply.
You have to be committed to social change. You have to be committed to creating that social change, that social, racial, or environmental change within your community or with your business. And you have to be willing to show up. I think one of the biggest constraints that we had is people that weren't showing up to the sessions. And that is a penalty to the rest of the cohort, because the opportunity to learn from your other cohort members and to fully participate in the program is extremely important. It's 12, 13 Tuesdays. You got to be willing to commit to that. And if you're not, maybe this isn't the program for you. But if you're willing to make that commitment to dive into the program, learn, and get that feedback, then we definitely want you to be a part of what we're doing. I think we touched on most of these other ones already. Applications are open right now. They close on March 1st. We've broadened our expert panelists that are reviewing these applications. It's not just the steering committee. It's not just Jacqueline Erickson Russell, who, by the way, not mentioning her is a mistake. She is actually the program lead. She runs a consulting firm called Social Impact Advising Group. She's amazing, and she does a fantastic job running the program. So it's not just Jacqueline and I making the decisions, or Father Justin and Drew making the decisions. We have a group of community experts that are looking at all the applications in the rounds. We'll do video interviews at the end of March. After we go through that first round of evaluating applications, we'll do in-person final pitches here in April, first part of April, and then we'll make a decision. I think our target date for announcing this is 4/19. It was going to be 4/20, but it just needs to be 4/19 for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And then we'll do programming. Will actually start on June 6th and run. So you've got time between the time you're selected. This was a mistake we made last year. We selected the cohort, and I think we started the programming like 2 or 3 weeks later, and that's just not enough time for people to change their schedules or, commit to that Tuesday piece. And that was part of our the downside of what we're doing. So programming will actually start in that June timeframe and run through September. I think demo day is scheduled for I want to say September 28th, something like that. Jaron, you want to come up here? Do you?
You give your pitch?
Yay.
Yes. I feel like we need a round of applause for this man. Right here.
We just unplugged the lights.
You did take the lights out on the way up.
I did.
You did. How are you? I just got my brand new custom-made Casey One Pair amazing hoodie.
Yes.
And I should have worn it tonight. But yeah, I got one. But by the way, it was handmade by this man right here.
Yeah.
You probably got one of those other ones.
I have no one pair swag.
Well,
0 is the number of things I have.
Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that?
You're just supposed to wear it.
Oh, I was just going to wear it?
Just wear it.
But I'm proud of it, though.
All right, well, we'll talk about that after. So Jaron, tell us a little bit, you want to do your quick pitch?
So, hello, everybody. My name is Jaron Thornhill. I am the founder, owner of One Pair. One Pair is a shoe store located on 55th and Truce, 5511 Truce Avenue. We buy, sell, and trade shoes. Not only that, we take local brands and give them a store that they can call home, because it costs so much for local entrepreneurs to get their own place, and be in big stores such as Macy. We provide a place for them. But not just a shoe store. It's a place where we're teaching young men how to be adults, how to be entrepreneurs, how to run the company. They're learning financial literacy, how to make the $10 but put up that $5 and invest in themselves. So, but come see us, get some shoes, get some gear, and everything's actually done by the kids too. So when you come in here, you actually experience the whole what One Pair is built about. And the name came from everyone deserves one pair of awesome shoes.
So tell us a little about your experience in the program, Jaron. What did you expect when you came into the program, and what did you get out of the program?
Well, first, I want to thank Kevin. I want to thank Father Justin Mathews, because in the program, first I got friends out of it. The mentors became friends. They became supporters. I went through a lot in the last month or so. I've been having surgery, had part of my colon removed, so I ain't supposed to be here, but I'm here. That's part of the entrepreneur life. You don't know how to stop. But they have been here from the support from day one. I didn't realize what I was doing in the program. I just knew what I wanted to start when I started my store. I started it because I was mentoring kids and things like that, and I was seeing kids die, and all the kids in the neighborhood just want to make some money, but no one shows them they show them how to make money, but no one shows them what to do with their money or how to save the money. So I was just creating something, and this program made me realize I was changing the world, and it's other people around me that are trying to change the world too. And we all scratching our heads at the same time. We dealing with money issues. We dealing with the real problems that we're trying to change. And this program put us all together and say, hey, we got a support system. And it took me to another level. One thing they made me realize was in this program is data. My pitch thing, I never talked about what I do. Like just now, over 2 years, the Boys and Us has gave over 2,000 pairs of shoes. We have created partners with big news stations. We created 12 plus jobs for kids. All my kids are either graduated from high school, living in lofts, got cars, they're living a good life. And I'm just like, oh man, we created this, but I never talked about the data. And they made me realize in that pitch thing, you got to talk about what you do and how you do it and talk about it. But this program has took me to another level, made me realize that I'm not in this by myself. It's a lot of things that you can change. And also, you don't have to be a nonprofit. But I have learned that it's nothing wrong with being a nonprofit because when I created the business and I made the decision to start a for-profit, all my boys were in the decision because when I say boys, the workers, the kids, the people who helped me start the store, they had came across issues, and I came across these same issues where coaches are fired that are part of nonprofits, and things change in those programs. You're like, dude, I can't say nothing, and things like that. So my kids are like, let's do for-profit because when we want to go to another city, we want to say, hey, we want to go to this city and no one can stop us. But after joining this program, I realized, nonprofits is not as bad. You create awesome support systems that believe in your dream, and those are the board of directors, and they really opened my eyes to those things. So yeah, that's what I got.
Talk a little bit about scalability, Jaron, because one of the things when you came into the program, you had the one store, and there's the opportunity. Like as we went through the program, we talked a lot about, is there an opportunity to have more than one pair, or how can one pair grow its impact beyond the 12 kids that you have in the store today, and so on? So
when I opened one pair, it was just the city. I just wanted to create something for these kids here, and being in the program made me realize that this program can work everywhere. It's kids everywhere that need this, not even just the local inner city, it's the suburbs, because these same kids in the suburbs are dealing with the same things these kids in the inner city dealing with. No father, how to make money, how to save money, and all those things. And when we talk about scalability now, the roof is open. It was there at first, but now I can really just hop out and, I can say I did this. I was part of Keystone. We're thinking about going to different cities, opening up multiple locations and changing more lives.
I think that's a distinguishing factor about, again, going back to applicants, because if you've got that entrepreneurial fire, if you've got that vision, or if you've got an inkling in you that maybe what you're doing is bigger than the spot where you are right now, should be a good applicant, because I think that's a great story. If you had the vision for the social venture, but over the course of time, you gain the vision for being able to, expand and scale that social venture. And I think that expansive mindset is a hallmark of entrepreneurship. That mindset that says, hey, if it's working at 31st and Troost, or if it's working at 51st and Troost, maybe it could work in St. Louis, maybe it could work somewhere else. And that entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is a big piece of the puzzle for social entrepreneurship.
Maybe you can work in Olathe and KCK. I mean, we
Absolutely.
talked about other places in the region that you could open these stores and have an impact where the kids really need that kind of support and that kind of opportunity. Your lead mentor, who's your lead mentor?
Steve. We went through a process where we got to choose our mentors. Mostly in programs, they say, hey, here's your mentor. We think this is good for you. He's in the same kind of category. You guys might not like each other, but he knows what he's doing. But, but we actually sat down, went through how many plus? 8+ mentors?
I think we went through 10 mentors. Everybody interviewed with 10 or 12 mentors, and then they select each other. So we asked all the mentors who they wanted to work with, and then we asked all the founders who they wanted to work with. And amazingly, it was a 1-to-1 match straight across the board.
Yeah, and my mentor is Steve Gardner. He's in the cannabis industry, which had nothing to do with shoes, but it's retail, which come to find out, it has a lot to do because it's business, and he knows a lot of that was another thing with Keystone. When it comes to real problems, because in a business you deal with real problems, and they were able to, my mentor, Keystone, I was able to come to Kevin and say, hey, I got this going on. I got to cut security, because protecting the store, things like that. And he was like, okay, let's come up with these solutions. I was able to sit down with not only Kevin, but also my cohort, because they deal with same problems. And we took time out to deal with those problems. And, so.
Yeah, I think that peer support model, again, when you're in a huge accelerator, you might not get that intimacy of being able to become really close friends with everybody. But that group of 7 in the first year, I mean, you guys all coalesced together, helped one another. And I think that kind of peer-to-peer mentoring that happens in the program is powerful too.
Yes.
So I want to be respectful of our time. We've got our next speaker that I'm anxious to hear from tonight as well. Jaron, is there anything that you haven't had the opportunity to say about the program, the impact it had, or any words of advice for people applying to come into the program?
Do it. Don't let nobody stop you. If you don't get in, keep going. But it is a good chance you can get in, because I didn't think I was going. I came in, I pitched, I was all over the place, but they was like, I see potential in you, and that made me feel good. And they took that chance, and now we here on stage. So
March 1st, right, Kevin?
Yeah, and I
Apply
think
by March 1st.
And we have another social venture meetup before then. If you want to learn more about social venturing and connect to the social venture community here in Kansas City, join us here on the 4th Tuesday of every month. So the next one is February 4th Tuesday.
Fourth Tuesday in February.
We'll be right here. Come join us. You can ask more questions about the program. We'd be happy to answer them then as well. We'll be sticking around for a little while after this, and grab us if you want to ask some specific questions about the program. Otherwise, go to keystonedistrict.org/social venture studio, or I think it's socialventurestudio.com.
Socialventurestudio.com.
Socialventurestudio.com. Check it out. You can apply for the program right there. Go through the application process is not long. It's not tedious. And get your application in. I mean, Jaron was able to do it. So
in a couple programs, it's not that.
It's an easy application. Yeah.
Especially if you're doing what you're doing and you're doing what you love, you can just put it on paper.
4th Tuesday, February 28th, 4th Tuesday.
What time?
6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, right here in this spot, 4th Tuesday each month.
Right after the Angel Accelerator that we also run here. Question?
I want to ask how you're selected. So you guys noticed, or you mentioned a lot of sustainability and stable businesses. What exactly does that mean to you in comparison, one sustainable business versus another sustainable? What makes one more valuable to your program?
I'm going to jump in, but I'm going to say, and you may have a more technical definition. If you have a vision and a way that you think you can get to sustainability, if you think this program can help you get there, I think that's a good indicator that you should apply. If you're already stable and you want to grow and scale, I think you should apply. Don't let that word hold you back. But the vision of social entrepreneurship is to not always be dependent upon grants and fundraising if you're on the nonprofit side. On the for-profit side, it's not always to be thinking about my money is just going towards return on investment, but I'm setting aside as a priority social return on investment as well and putting money towards that and growing that sustainably. So whichever way you come from it, that word sustainable, you could have a vision for it, but we just want you to be working towards it, like a minimum viable product, working towards it.
Yeah, I would say you don't have to be there, but that's the goal of coming into the program. So do you have a model that can become sustainable, that can become stable in your business? Don't feel like you have to apply and you already have. I mean, why would you need to be in the program if you were already there? So what we're looking to do in the program is help you reach that sustainability as a business operator, that stability of not feeling like, if I don't get this next customer, I'm gonna have to shut the doors or lay people off or do whatever. I'm not gonna be able to operate or not be able to have the impact I want to have. So do you have that vision for a stable business model or a sustainable business model? And for us, we had a long debate and we could talk for hours about the difference between sustainable business models and stable business models. That might be, for another session up here. But does that answer your question? Like, that's what we're looking for, people who have a vision for how to get there.
I don't think I talked about finance because I talked about what I was open for a year and things like that. But when I talked about scalability, I talked about what I want to do in the future and then the plans and how can this be in other places and the need for it. So that's when it's really about what the need for and can it be done in other places.
I think it's important, again, like when you apply, if you get the opportunity to pitch on video or then in person, don't think you just need to focus on finances. We are really interested in the social impact and how you want to grow that as well. So when we say sustainable, just like Jeremy was saying, like think about social sustainability. How am I going to continue to build trust in the community? How is this work that I'm doing in the environmental space going to continue to have impact? What's technology doing to it, et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, we are interested in the fiscal viability of the operation, right? If it was just another nonprofit and all it was going to do is get funded by grants and there's no vision for future stability or sustainability, we could argue that that's not as much a social venture as something else, right? But I would encourage you, and I know the work that you do, and I think you've applied, and so I would encourage you out there that if you're curious about it, Kevin, is there a way that people can reach out through the website?
Yeah, Keystone District. You can reach out to me directly, Kevin at keystonedistrict.org. You can reach out to Jacqueline Erickson Russell. You can reach out ideas at keystonedistrict.org. Those emails will come to us, and we'd be happy to answer any specific questions you might have going into the application process. I do want to make a comment related to how do I stack up against the other applicants, or what would make me stand out. We talked about some of those things. Do you understand your why? Like, do you understand your why? Are you passionate about your why? And do you have a vision for how you can get there? And are you headed down that path? It's a competitive process, so it's really hard for us to say how you might stand out against others because we don't know who's in the cohort. But are you clear on your why, and do you have a vision for scale, not just of your business but of your impact? And if those three things are all in alignment, you're going to stand out. I mean, it's just how it's going to work.
And if you could take feedback, because I think that was the biggest thing back for
Yep.
me. Even though my business, like Kevin was like, yo, you got it. You just need to, and that was the big thing. That I think I could say that, when they say people invest in business, they also invest in that person. And
Absolutely.
if they see, if you really about it, they'll invest in you. So.
Yeah, I think as long as you're at that minimum viable product stage, like if it's just an idea on a Google Doc, you're probably not ready, right? But if you're at the early stage and you have a path towards social impact and a path towards fiscal sustainability, some sort of business model, apply. And I think that early stage is totally fine. We do want you to be down the road enough that you've got something viable that's operating. And if you're not operating this year, I would suggest, again, not to plug it, but that fourth Tuesday, come to become a part of the circle of people that are interested in this stuff so that you can then apply the next year. Because even just kind of rubbing up against people like Jaron and others, like, you learn. I remember even in the pitch process, I felt like there was advice going back and forth just in the pitch process. It was pretty incredible just to hear the generosity of the people that are part of the process. We want social entrepreneurs to succeed. We're not here to weed people out. We're here to bring people in and to build that ecosystem.
Definitely. Thanks everybody for the time, for listening. Thank you, Father Justin, for your commitment to the program and for being here tonight. And Jaron, thanks for the surprise pop in. I appreciate you always.
Absolutely.
And thanks for the feedback. And if you guys have any questions, you can help Jaron afterwards. I think he'll stick around for a few minutes, won't you? All right, fantastic.